fantastic. This is GT racing right now.
He's got traction, he's got everything outside of both of them! Maloney!
Oh, he's taken Anderson! Anderson's up top!
Oh my god! Oh! Big crash! Oh my goodness, half the field's gonna get rolled!
Second very close. These guys are want to make their way through the field very quickly.
Oh, there we go! Oh no!
That's massive! This is it! This is over! I can't believe this! Oh my god!
God, what?
This is the original esport racing game. This is iRacing.
Welcome one and all to the iRacing Esports Network this wonderful Wednesday night. If you're in the Oceanic Asia Pacific part of the world, Sprint Series Australasia is back. Of course, run by GT Leagues Australia. This is the Epiroc Sprint Series Australasia. Epiroc Australia, thank you so much for coming on board and sponsoring this fantastic championship. We've had a bunch of history in this series, and we're about to write a new chapter of the book tonight. For SimSpeed TV, my name is Reese Gardner. Joining me, Jay Kennedy. Jay, we're starting the season at Sonoma Raceway in California, a historic track where you have no chances to rest.
Yeah, welcome everyone to a new era of racing in this series, and looking forward to bringing the coverage. And as you said, it's a difficult circuit, and running the longer layout as well. So we're more traditionally, we'll see the cup layout used, but the longer layout, you did a few laps of practice before and you were exhausted after only a couple of laps. 45 minutes of racing here. It's going to be a lot of hard work. There is no place to rest at all.
Yeah, and the lap times come thick and fast as well. We've seen lap times of a minute 25 in qualifying, drivers dipping down into the mid 124s in the warm-up session before we go live for this 45-minute race. And speaking of the format, well, this is a return to what we've traditionally seen in Sprint Series Australasia. There's the information. We got a 45-minute race and a 50% fuel tank restriction. So drivers, unless they are incredibly good at fuel saving, will not be able to make the race on one tank of fuel.
Yeah, we have seen it before where drivers have been able to make it based on based on safety car strategy. There is a potential for the iRacing first safety car to come out. And the interesting thing for this season too that has changed is the qualifying format slightly different. So qualifying done on different weather to the race. Drivers do not know anything about the race weather beforehand. They know the qualifying weather in the warm-up. So they've got a little bit longer of a warm-up session to get the hang of the weather. And fairly good conditions out there for racing as well, as they are in the morning session or in the morning out on track. Wind's very, very strong though, but track temp nice and cool.
Yes, indeed, and that's what you want in these GTE cars. We are running GTE or GTLM spec if you're in the United States machinery. So we got a good variety of cars out there. There's the guy in position 1, John Piesnik for JPR Racing, and the BMW M8, the big boy. It's the car of choice for one of the drivers who has challenged for championships and seen many instances of success in this series.
It's good to see him out there in one of the faster cars instead of trying to challenge himself with one of the more difficult ones. And the BMW and the Ferrari seem to be the cars of choice. Jimmy Ball, currently the highest placed Ferrari in this warm-up session. Interesting to see how many Ford GTs. It hasn't been the car of choice in other series, but in this series there's quite a few out on track. I think we've seen 4 or 5. Luis Paulo Gallen right at the top of the timesheets, P4 in that car, but he will start this race from second position in one of the more difficult and what is being seen by a lot of the drivers as the slowest car. He's absolutely flying in that thing, which is great to see.
And it just proves that it's not necessarily as clear-cut as choosing the right car in a championship like this. Piesnik, of course, in the BMW, it's a front-engined twin-turbo V8 monstrosity from Germany, but the Ford has a twin-turbo V6 mid-engined. And all these cars are rear-wheel drive, so that's a big equalizer. And John Peasnick's just demonstrating for us now how he attacks the highest speed point of the track. Not much runoff in that area, and no tarmac runoff to speak of around a place like this.
Yeah, one thing you said before that I had never thought of before, but it absolutely is right. This is Monaco without the walls, because you've got the undulation, you've got the narrow circuit, and the fact that you can't take a breath and have a little rest at all around the entire track. It really is a bit like that, because the rise and the fall of this circuit is so extreme. The cambers are so incredible as well. It's a fantastic track that is so underutilised, and will really be amazing to see how these cars go. You're also saying too, it's these cars are almost too high powered for this circuit, so it'll be interesting to see how they go once we start to see a bit of battling, and also be interesting to see how the leaders go through with lap traffic with a 48 car field. That's going to be a big factor come about mid-race, 3/4 of the way through.
Yeah, you think IndyCar and NASCAR are chaotic when they come here. Well, GTE machinery is definitely going to serve up some drama. Hopefully not too much, though, because we do like this series because it provides some fantastic, exciting racing amongst some of the best GT drivers in the Australia-New Zealand sim community. I'm interested to see how Gallon goes. He's been one of those drivers that has challenged for wins, and he's had success as well in this series, but unfortunately, consistency hasn't always been his best attribute. He is an extremely talented driver, though. Interested to see how he develops across the course of this season, because he is mighty skilled.
Yeah, he definitely is, and he's always a championship contender. He just missed out a couple of seasons ago on the championship. Last season as well was right up there right until the end, so be interesting to see how he goes.
Yeah, for sure. Well, we're coming up to the end of the warm-up session. It's time for the start grid, presented, of course, by Epiroc Australia.
What I like most about working for Epiroc is that no 2 days are ever the same. One day you could be in the office, the next day you're travelling to mine sites in remote locations. This is what inspires me.
Join the Epiroc Australia team and enter a world of innovation, commitment, and collaboration. Epiroc Australia is looking for passionate people to be part of our global team and to make a real difference for our customers. We cultivate leaders in the mining industry, providing a career path and the support to achieve great things. This is an environment that challenges you to thrive. If you're ready to start a new journey, visit us at epiroc.com.au. Thank you very much, Epiroc. Here is the starting grid. So, in position number 1, we got John Peasnick. Joining him on the first row, Luis Paulo Gallon, Alexander Bird, and Michael Healy for Trick Sim Sports make row 2. Dominic Ferraris joining Zachary Hanlon on row 3. Reese Gasol, John Peasnick's teammate, starts from P7 with Trent Thomas, the next Trek car, in position number 8.
We've got Brett Cananzi and Michael Barron on the 5th row with Philip Worley and Mia Ott on the 6th row. Martin Silvassi and Ross Rizzo, another all-trick Sim Sports row there with row 7. Jake Maloney from Trans-Tasman Racing, that's still very, very confusing to see, with his former teammate alongside him from TTL Esports, Nick Cummings, on row 8.
Ryan Jerrick and Jimmy Ball make up row 9 with Adam Briggs and Darren Lobb in 20th position. Cody Bircher makes the first one performance racing car outside the top 20. Cameron Dance for Slick Sim Sports in 22nd position. Neil Pearson and Daniel Misdale making up row 12.
We've got Justin Wallace and Cameron Stubber on row 13 with Riley Blythe and Clint Shane Smith on the 14th row. I was just seeing there's a car stopped on the start grid. I believe that's Brett Cananzi having issues starting the car. Of course, that's a big change that we've seen in the recent past from last time we ran this season, this championship, I should say. Thomas Hinds and Darren Huxham on row 15 with Bradley Ratu, Simon Mazzomo, 31st and 32nd.
Starting to go down through the field, Brett Hender for Team Hyperdrive and David Mulhall alongside him. Benjamin Johnson and Josh Perween making 35th and 36th. John Nicolaife starts from 37th position. XG Motorsports Jacob Knight from 38th. Sebastian Murray Westberg for Redback Racing Team and Stephen Bartholomew rounding out the top 40 cars in this one.
And then the last page of starting grid, Rob Carmichael and Pat Gallo, row 21. Row 22 as Darren McKenzie and Andrew Mogridge with Benjamin Brook, Reese Harnell, Michael Spithill and Roy Clark rounding out our 48 car field for round number 1. Looking forward to seeing how it goes. We're looking at around about 32 laps and 50% fuel tank restriction, as we saw throughout most of last season, will mean that we will almost definitely see a pit stop. One thing about this circuit, though, it is really, really tough to save fuel because you're almost always on the throttle. There's not too many points around the circuit that you haven't got some throttle pushed in. So seeing how these guys battle this circuit with this fuel tank restriction will be really interesting. We'll probably see around about 30 minutes to a tank. And then working out how you get yourself into the right position is always really tough in these races.
Yeah, absolutely, and you make a good point about the amount of time spent on throttle. It's interesting because the vast majority of the track is turns. It doesn't really have any straights to speak of other than the run up to the hairpin, so it's a big challenge for these drivers. They're going to have to look after their tyres as well. So the field forming up behind the iRacing first safety car. The start is going to be challenging because the start area doesn't have any runoff. If you make a mistake in that area, then it spells certain doom for the guys behind you. There's the safety car pulling into the pits. Have a look at this glorious field of GT cars we got taking the start here at Sonoma. Peacenik already away. That is a fantastic run. Gallon already trying to block off Alexander Bird, who was making a great dive down the inside. More contact. Oh, it's a narrow run up to turn 2. Gallon off. That is not going to help him at all. Right onto the track, spat out in front of the field. Thank goodness that didn't get too bad. Reese Castaldo making contact, and Gallon, a horror first lap for the number 40.
He almost felt like he was working too hard to hold on to that position. Didn't quite need to race that hard. Reese Gasol involved, and also I believe that was Brett Cananzi as well. It's had an issue. He's missing the front of his car. So disastrous start to this race for those guys. Adam Briggs also losing a position. Cameron Dance around the outside. I must say that car of Dance's looks absolutely stunning in that look as Briggs through. And also another car slow. That's Cameron Stubber. Another of the 4 GTs out there having a little bit of trouble through the infield carousel. But Peacenik already broken away to a second lead.
Yeah, absolutely. The field's just sorting themselves out at the moment. Mostly single file up the front. There's Dance almost going side by side through this S's section. You'll be able to see just how much the limit can be pushed here, over the limit for Cameron Dance.
Safety car.
That is a caution. Safety car from race control. So problems for someone out on track.
Yeah, we'll try and dissect that start. Michael Spithill is actually... Oh, he's upside down.
Oh, yeah.
Okay,
that's too.
That's at
and that's at the hairpin.
Hairpin, yeah. So,
wow.
That's not what we were expecting to see. We'll
oh, dear.
Get a replay of what's happened there.
Yeah, of course, and thanks to Modem Simulation for sponsoring our replays at SimSpeed TV. Unfortunately, it was the doing of Luis Paulo Gallon that got Michael Spithill upside down. So Spitty turned in, and Gallon trying to make it 3 wide on the entry to the hairpin.
Well, actually, Gallon was sort of hit a little bit from the inside there. So
he was. He didn't have much space. Unfortunately, it was the contact with Gallon that put Spitty over, but yeah, not quite Gallon's fault there.
No. And Gallon probably didn't really do a lot wrong. It's the contact from the inside from I believe that was Benjamin Brook. You could hear the contact there and just shot the car offline. We'll go back to the actual start of the race though, because that start from Gallon, I think he was a little bit too racy there. That was a little bit ambitious from him right from the start to squeeze Bird into the fence, and then the contact, I believe that's more on Gallon than anything else, this entire progression of this incident here.
Yeah, I mean, Bird, I think, had every right to try and make a move. He had a bit of view of Peacenik, and Gallon, I think, missed the boat when Peacenik put the hammer down. It's just unfortunate there. Not much space around that part of the circuit either, so Gallon, my goodness. It's not the start that I think anyone was expecting, and there's Reese Gasol recovering from that.
Actually, watch this incident here from Reese Gasol, because there's a little bit of... yeah, and he's got off the throttle there, and there was a couple of hits before he even got to the turning point, and then missed out the car that makes the final bit of contact to spin him around. So Spithill back in the lane, and he will... maybe not take much further part in this race, but we are under the iRacing safety car again, and I don't think anyone was expecting it to come out at that point of the first lap, but lap 1 of these seasons have often seen a little bit of controversy, and then after the first little bit, everyone settles down a little bit more and we get back into some serious racing. Maloney can't a jump and decide to come into the lane. Probably no real surprise. You've got nothing really to lose. Another couple of safety cars come out and you find yourself in a very, very good spot.
Yeah, and you got to imagine as well, it's very hard to pass at a track like this, so if you can get as much of your service done in the pits as possible, as early as possible, you might not have as much trouble trying to fight your way past people in the last stages of the race. You'll be the one defending moves from faster cars at that point.
Yeah, exactly right. And of course, if we have another caution, we'll probably see a lot more in the pits, and there's some free passes as well. So it's not a bad ploy. I don't think there's anything you really got to lose. And Jake Maloney is a driver that doesn't mind starting from the back of the field anyway, so he probably won't mind the challenge of trying to work his way through the field. We've seen him do that quite a lot in AOSC and on other V8 broadcasts, so seeing him do it in the GTE car will be quite fun to see.
Yes, indeed. Darren Lobb also making his way through the pits, as was David Mulhall. There's Maloney coming out of the pits there, so be interesting to see what the new signing to Trans-Tasman can do. Nikolaf in the pits as well. So we got a bit to go before we can go green. The lights are off on the safety car, so we will be going green at the end of this lap, but around Sonoma, it's tight and twisting and slow, and when you're actually at racing speed around here, it doesn't feel like you're going much faster than when you're touring around behind the safety car.
It's a real deceptive circuit, isn't it? I mean, we've both done a lot of laps here in the past, but not so much on this layout. It's a fantastic circuit that's so underutilised in almost every car, so it's great to see it as part of this schedule. And I think once the tyres start to wear a little bit, I think we're going to see some really interesting fighting between all of these guys at the front, because tyre conservation is probably something a lot of these guys haven't thought too much about. They've just been out there hot lapping for qualifying and maybe tweaking a setup. The point now is how do you manage the tyres? I mean, the track temp isn't extremely hot, but with 50 cars out there, it will heat up pretty quick.
Yeah, well, this may be called Sprint Series Australia, but sometimes sprint is the last thing on your mind. Peasnick hammers it down out of the hairpin. Bird manages to stay with him. Good start from Ferraris behind Bird as well. Clean start all through the top of the field.
Yeah, good jump as well for Peasnick. Dominic Ferraris right on the tail there of Alexander Bird and Zach Hanlon, not too far behind as well, but it looks like for the most part the field is fairly settled. There was a car that was trying to come into the pit lane and was losing a little bit of ground and checked up the field in the mid-pack, and Cameron Dance still feeling that pressure from Cody Bircher. It's exactly as it was before the caution. He has Bircher right under his rear wing.
Absolutely does, and oh, that's a very tempting move to make. That hairpin is faster than you think it is. Barely flat out blast towards the high-speed downhill sweeper. You see Dance taking a tighter line, but unfortunately the mid-corner speed does get sacrificed as a result of that. You can sling yourself out onto the following straight though. Ferraris, meanwhile, starting to fall back just slightly from Bird. Ferraris carrying a slight bit of damage to the left front of his Ferrari as well.
Yeah, no. Michael Barron as well, starting to feel pressure from Philip Worley and Ott, Silvassi, Rizzo, Cananzi, Cummings, all in that little group as well. So we got through lap the second flying lap a little bit cleaner, as there's a little move going on here. Rizzo off in the dirt and Cananzi trying to apply pressure despite that damage to his car. He's doing a very, very good job, but Nick Cummings trying to get a move done here.
Yeah, Cummings would be able to almost get that done, but not quite enough of a run onto the start-finish stretch. I think in Cananzi's situation, it isn't harming him that much not having a front bumper, because the average speeds around this track are low enough that mechanical grip provides much greater incentive for pace. So it's good to see that he's still out there despite missing that front bumper and any way of seeing when it gets dark.
Lucky it's the morning and instead of the night, because if you're racing at sunset, he won't be in a little bit of trouble by the end. But you're right, the average speed here is quite low in comparison to pretty much every other circuit on the schedule. So to see him with that damage, it won't be hindering anywhere near as much. Maybe hurting a little bit of turn, but yeah, the straight line speed won't be affected too much by Cananzi, as front of the field, starting to stretch out a tiny little bit, but that battle, well, Dance is definitely the cork in the bottle because he's already dropped a second to Bircher and now feeling pressure from Misdale.
Yeah, he is not having a great time in that Porsche at the moment. Bircher, you can see, really brought away that gap, and Misdale slightly offline in that part. Not optimal, especially considering you need to straight line that right-hander as much as possible. Dance, though, we can expect a lot of him because in race situations, he does tend to finish further up than his pace or his one-lap pace suggests.
And amazingly, we had back now 2 green flag laps of racing, and there's already half a second separating the field. Incredible how quickly this field is stretching out. There's, now Peasnick and Bird. Bird just set the fastest lap of the race on his first flying lap, and again, second lap in, he set his second fastest lap. Still faster than every other car out there. So Alexander Bird is one to watch here because he's starting to close that gap down to Peasnick very quickly.
Yeah, he certainly is. We'll keep an eye on that front battle. Oh, there's been a spinner back in the pack, Jay, coming out of the sweeper. It's a BMW around Silvassi.
Yeah. It's a little bit, excuse me, a little bit disastrous for him. We'll try and work out what happened, though, because that's a strange spot to be facing up against that wall there.
Just looks to me like he got on the throttle hard and started sliding, but as he went across the curb and the rear caught the gravel, there was no saving that thing afterwards. Here's the replay of what happened. Unfortunate that he did it all on his own, but it's an easy mistake to make at a track like this, that compression just overloading the rears.
Yeah, and with how competitive this field is, he's losing so many positions so quickly as well. So he's dropped from around 13th back to 31st position now. It's Philip Worley and Michael Barron continue to battle. This is the closest battle within the top 10 at the moment. Worley's looking really strong, just can't quite get the move done yet.
Yeah, Worley took a little bit to get up to pace. I saw a couple of mistakes from him in the opening laps, but he's doing really well coming up to the back of Michael Barron. And you see through this part of the track, Mia Ott, just behind Worley, is really starting to put the pressure on as well. Ott just going a bit harder into those slower corners.
Seen so too. A little bit of changing position. That's Cody Bircher sliding off in the grass. Was ahead of Adam Briggs. So we said before that Bircher had already pulled 1 second on Dance. Bircher did get ahead of Briggs. Briggs has got it back through the infield carousel, and now Briggs holding onto that position for now. Very tight between them. Actually going to cut right up to the front of the field because it's on for 4th and 5th. Hanlon and Healy getting very close. Michael Healy looking strong here too. So the Trick Sim Sports guys, we know how good they are in this series. They definitely got the car set up much better for race pace than qualifying spec.
Yeah, Trick, obviously one of the most experienced and successful teams in this championship. They've had a semi-rotating roster of drivers over that time, but one thing has remained consistent. They've been able to get that race pace nice and fine. And you got to look out for them, especially towards the end, because particularly in the case of Ross Rizzo, they know how to fuel save too.
Yeah, they're all very skilled at fuel saving and keeping out of trouble. 1 Ross Rizzo, 3 SSA championships. So amazing that the last championship's the first one that Ross Rizzo didn't win, but he was still in contention at the last round. So
yeah,
fantastic that we've had such a competitive series the whole way through. As well as Peasnick and Bird last lap by pretty much identical times. Healy, though, is closing this gap down to Hanlon. Last lap by 0.2 of a second quicker. The lap previous 0.2 of a second. And right now the gap is under half a second. So Healy looks really strong here.
Yeah, and I'm noticing a bit of difference in body language between Hanlon and Healy too. Healy's taking some more direct and narrow lines, which will undoubtedly be helping the tyre conservation game. Hanlon, meanwhile, he's really pushing hard. He's one of those guys at Altus Esports that always likes to push the envelope, does Hanlon, in terms of grip. So, be interesting to see how this battle works out and how Hanlon will do more towards the end of this one. But it's looking to me like a pass may be coming pretty soon if Healy keeps this form up.
Other pass very, very
Whoa.
close, or potentially could happen here. Wally's really close now. It's tucked right under that rear wing of the big boy of Michael Barron. Barron will be feeling the pressure here because I've seen Philip Wally right up towards the pointy end throughout this series. The top running driver in DPR racing. He's doing a very, very good job, and Ott not far behind. Rizzo's dropped a little bit from these guys as well. I've just noticed as Briggs and Bircher go at it again, and Briggs off the circuit. Oh, this is going to get messy here. You can feel it.
Yeah, you certainly can. This is going to be quite the interesting fight coming into one of the quicker turns on the circuit. Oh my goodness, side by side on the exit. This is going to be an outbreaking race for sure. Who's braver? Well, the Porsche it briefly had more rubber, but Bircher having the inside line there, he'll be able to get that exit down nicely, and he has more opportunities to block through the S's section. That's one aspect of this track we haven't talked about yet.
Exactly right. It is a really tough track to pass at, so regardless of what car you're in, it is a very, very tough, tight track, and passing is definitely something that is not easy. It's just seen Michael Healy give Zach Hanlon a big flash of the headlights, say, hang on, mate, I'm not far away, I'm wanting to get through. And the gap is really close now. 0.3 of a second separating these two cars.
Looking forward to seeing how that battle eventuates, because through these roller coaster turns, you can see a lot of curb usage as well from Healy through that section. Hanlon going off into the gravel, such an easy thing to do at that section of the track. Whoa, and Ott trying to be opportunistic and make her way through as well. So that's 2 positions lost in a couple of corners there for Michael Barron. Look at the gap that Worley's got already. You can tell he was waiting to make that move.
Yeah, we'll try and work out exactly how that move's happened, because I'm wondering if there was a little bit of contact and Barron's made a mistake. Side by side into the S and just bounced it off the curb, and good momentum from Wally just to hang it around the outside, forced Barron to have to check up on exit, and Ott took advantage and threw into 8th place. So,
off camber and over the crest of a hill is that turn as well, so if you can put one up the inside in that section, you're pretty much guaranteed a position as long as you can keep your car hard right, drivers right on the circuit. Cummings and Jarek, meanwhile, battling for 13th and 14th. Have a look at Jarek's line through that section of the circuit, and there's almost a move. Cummings trying to hold on around the outside. Look, he's almost on the lock stops. That's how tight that last hairpin is here. Especially tight coming across the start-finish line too.
Side by side through here is side by side through here is not easy as well, because it is a very, very narrow section. Jarek gets the spot, or holds onto the spot. Have a look at who's in there too. One of the most ambitious drivers we've seen out there. Cody Bircher's right in it too.
Yeah, this is going to be fantastic, and there's a proper train of cars forming now. We got Briggs and Dance behind them who are fighting, and then behind them we got the twosome of Misdale and Pearson in the BMW. So this could turn into a proper freight train fairly soon if these guys keep battling.
Wally, a mistake.
Oh no.
Drop behind Kananzi.
Oh, yeah. Speaking of Kananzi, the fact that he's been able to maintain such a high position despite having no front end is pretty impressive. Meanwhile, you see almost a bit of Morse code getting dialed on bumpers in this section of the field just outside the top 10. But who's going to be the first to blink and make a move for the pits? We are almost at the point where drivers can pit and get it home.
We probably can get it home from now. Yeah. We probably are past it with under half an hour to go. So looking like around about 20 laps of racing to go. Here we go. Wally in. He's actually got damage to that rear wing as well. So I'm wondering if there was a little bit more to that incident than we actually saw originally, as Dance and Briggs again continue to fight. But Healy is really close to Hanlon now. It's dropped down to 0.2 of a second at the line. So I'm wondering if Healy's just happy tucked in under the rear wing for the moment, save a dash of fuel to try and jump at the pit stop.
Yeah, it seems that way. The fact that he's taking more curb on the insides of these corners could be an effort to just shorten his lines around the track as much as possible so he can maintain a good amount of fuel usage while keeping up that momentum. I just rewound, by the way, to take a look at what happened to Wally. At the cascading left-hander, he went wide and had a little bit of a kiss of the wall.
Okay, so interesting there. It's just seen Ott has got past Barron as well. It's in the background there. And Rizzo closing in. And have a look at the gap between Cananzi back to Jimmy Ball, who is second place Ferrari. Speaking of Ferraris is the lead Ferrari. He's doing a great job in third at the moment. Out all by his lonesome as well. As Trent Thomas has joined into this battle for fourth position because he is tucked under the wing of Michael Healy now too.
Yeah, it's going to be a double trick assault on the Altus Esports BMW of Zach Hanlon pretty soon, I'm sure. Looking at lap times, Hanlon a 25.7, Healy a 25.9. Not the best on that particular lap, but times can vary a lot around this circuit.
Yeah, exactly right. It's all about the momentum out of the last corner. You can lose a little bit of a ground there and close it straight back up. And of course, being tucked under the rear wing of another car, sometimes you can get a little bit of a compromised run out of the final corner, or out of the hairpin, I should say, because of the way that other drivers handle that corner. And just noticing too, the pit stop times around about 7.5 seconds. So very, very short pit stops for these guys out there today. Won't take too long for everyone to come in and get pit stops. Around about 35 to 38 second transit down the lane total.
And that means a lot around a place like this where lap times are only 85 seconds long or thereabouts. You need to make sure that you also come out in a bit of clear air, because this track has not much space, not many straights for people to sort themselves out. Simon Mazzomo.
We have to get a replay of this one.
Yeah, I think we will have to. Sorry, Simon. Thanks, Modem Simulation, for allowing us to
embarrass
our series admin.
Yep.
It was a good attempted pass there from Mazzomo, and he actually got it done quite nicely. But what happened here? Looks like just at the changeover over the hill, maybe. Oh, yeah, actually, probably a bit of oversteer that just wouldn't go away.
Yep. You see that quite a lot in these cars as well, that the cars will just snap all of a sudden and won't come back. Seeing Briggs and Smith have both come into the pits. Mazzomo's rejoined in 30th position, so he was right underneath the rear wing of Brad Ratu for a very, very long time. They started nose to tail as well, so that fight won't continue for now, as Barron now has Ross Rizzo right under that rear wing.
He has indeed. Rizzo has made his way up very nicely in the early stages of this. He started in 14th position, remember, so to be in the top 10 at this stage, it sets him up well for the final 20 minutes, which is where we often see him shine. Of course, Rizzo doesn't get many opportunities to showcase his racing ability. He tends to be a driver that holds back and gets positions through other people making mistakes or through strategic games. So Rizzo versus Barron, I'm looking forward to see.
Two drivers that are very, very experienced. I've seen Barron recently rejoin the V8 side of things, but this racing is a little bit more suited to his style. He's a little bit more of a GT racer than a V8 racer, so great to see him out there in this field. It's currently in 9th position, as the pit lane is getting very, very active at the moment. There's heaps of drivers starting to take the plunge. Bircher and Misdale in this lap. We've had Worley and Ball, as we saw before. Briggs has been in, Smith, Mulhall, and I believe Pat Gallo's been in for a drive-through penalty as well. So as we reach the halfway point of this race, this is getting very, very interesting. Ferraris is actually the one that might be in a bit of trouble. He said before he was in a bit of no man's land. Look at how close Hanlon's got. Last time I looked at that, it was 2.5 seconds. It is now down to just over half a second. So Hanlon is coming.
Looks like the big boys are combining forces to advance on the Ferrari Fortress. So a four-way battle could eventually ensue here, unless Ferraris decides to dive into the pits early and not get himself into a tough racing situation.
Yeah, I mean, if you feel like you're getting held up, it's not a bad ploy to jump into the pits a little bit earlier than someone else. It's always an easier way to get past when you're in the pits. And just seeing Adam Briggs, who we said he's made his pit stop, he's now stuck behind Andrew Mogridge and can't get through at the moment. Also there is Luis Paulo Gallon trying to make his way back through the field. He has gone a lap down, has Gallon, after his issues earlier on in the race. So as now Briggs gets through up into 29th position, There's a third place driver that has made his pit stop is Adam Briggs. The first one being the car of Philip Wally. As just seen, Justin Wallace has jumped in from 15th position. Pit lane is starting to get quite active, and the leaders are starting to catch some traffic.
Yeah, and this could really start to spice things up. Who is that off there in the battle for fourth? Roy Clark, drivers outside the top 40 starting to go down in the order now. And oh, Gallon, I've just noticed down at the hairpin, making contact with Mogridge there. That may not be looked at too kindly.
He's had a disastrous race, pretty much the worst possible race that he could have had as Luis Paulo Gallon. Yeah, probably wasn't really necessary to try and make the move when you're a lap down, but he's decided he wants to get quite racy, which, I mean, in some aspects we don't mind, but in other aspects might not be the best idea when you're that far back.
Oh, Cody Bircher now. He's made a move on Andrew Mogridge, trying to make his way past. So things are getting spicy, and right behind them, Darren Lobb having a couple of issues. He had quite the slide. This is a spicy section of racetrack here.
It is. They're just seeing two, Cameron Stubber and Benjamin Johnson also battling as Dance makes his way into the pits. It's on for third though, because Ferraris has got a real big cluster of cars right under that rear wing.
Yeah, Ferraris has lost an awful lot of pace in the last few laps, and Hamlin took another 2/10 out of him on the last lap. Healy and Thomas also running very competitive times, actually. Thomas and Healy are the fastest of these guys.
Yeah, we said before that Trent Thomas was coming, and yeah, he's the fastest out of this group. Second fastest car out on track at the moment is Peasnick is in a world of his own. Last lap by 25.3. Otten Barrett also in the 25s, and then Trent Thomas 26 absolute flat. So Trent Thomas is very, very quick out there at the moment, so it'd be interesting to see if he can get through, or whether he decides at some point, I'm not going to get past these guys out on track, but I might be able to jump them in the pits.
Yeah, that's always an option, especially here. We may not see it at some of the higher speed tracks we visit, the ones with longer straights, but at Sonoma, it's all about the time you can make up in the pits, because goodness me, it's hard to pass around here. No one going for the pits once again this time round. I think Ferraris is trying to stretch this initial stint as long as possible.
I think Ferraris too, just see those two lap cars ahead, that's Rob Carmichael and John Nikolaev, who have just had a fight for position, so I'm wondering if that's distracted these guys a little bit. They're a bit cautious, because look at the big late lunge there that Nikolaev was thinking of doing there on Carmichael, but decided against it. But Ferraris, Hanlon, Healy and Thomas all in this group of cars here. Very, very close. Oh, big late lunge from Hanlon. Oh, just pulled it up.
He was able to maintain a bit of momentum through there as well. That's given Ferraris a bit of a lifeline, actually. They were right on his back. Now he can try and eke out a little bit more as these guys perhaps fight with each other. Those three BMWs continuing line astern. Let's take a look at what happened there.
I'm actually going to look at another incident. Benjamin Johnson has been involved in an incident back in the field, and that is the number 30 car of Cameron Stubber, just giving him a little bit of a tap through the hairpin, and he's actually pulled up to try and redress that straight away as Stubber. So he's acknowledged that he's made a boo-boo there, and thought he better back out of it and do the right thing. We'll get another look at that before we come back. And having a look at Hanlon, Ferraris, Healy and Thomas in their little fight. Just see the door was sort of left open a little bit there. For
the nature of the track through that section is interesting, because it sort of tightens up. Thomas, meanwhile, has made his way into the pits, leaving this pack behind.
And here's Hanlon. Have a look at how late that lunge was. He just pulled it up. Look at the wheel work there.
Oh, I love it. That's the kind of car control display we like to see. You know, these are usually endurance racing machines. They usually have traction control enabled, different engine modes, often designed to be as easy to drive as possible. So when you put them in a situation like this, it results in some quite fun action to behold.
Now, what'll be interesting here is to see where Trent Thomas, if I could speak English, it's been a long a few days of commentary for me. Where he comes out in comparison to these guys, because when these guys come in the pits, will he undercut, will he overcut? Oh, sorry, Willie undercut, Willie drop in behind, and these guys overcut. He's come out in clear air as well, which is a huge advantage for Trent Thomas. He's come out ahead of Bradley Ratu, behind Thomas Hinds, and the gap ahead of him to Hinds is 4 and a bit seconds. So he's got a heap of spare track around him to just cruise at, get momentum back, and I think the undercut's going to work really well here for Trent Thomas.
Absolutely. Can't wait to see what these other three guys in the battle pack do. Thomas's pit transit time, 34.5 seconds, and he spent 7.1 seconds stationary, which is one of the better pit stops we've seen. A couple of guys have gone under 7 seconds, but the vast majority of them 7 and a bit or up. Michael Barron, meanwhile, what can he do? He's had a very good run. He stayed in the top 10 pretty much all race. Oh, no! Oh!
It was Kenanzi.
Drama.
Yeah, and I've just seen two Bartholomew just having an issue. I believe that was our very, very good mate Seb that was coming out of the pits there, just got himself in a bit of trouble.
Yeah, Seb going wide there to let the Ferrari go. Just an example of what you see all the time at this track. It's a gauntlet, is Sonoma. So Seb was coming out of the pits, and then Kenanzi. Whoa! Little bit of paint rubbed off the side of that LeBlanc BMW.
Just got another quick look here. Bartholomew had an incident as well. Was he helped at this point? I believe he's done this one all by himself.
This is at the uphill chicane section of the track, and the Ford. One of the more difficult cars to drive on the limit, just catching the gravel. I will say, especially from the front, that's a very nice looking Ford. I like what Redback have done with that.
Yep, I agree. Guess who's battling again? Cameron Dance and Adam Briggs.
These
They've
guys
come back
can't leave
together.
each other
And
alone.
Cody Bircher is behind these guys after their pit stops as well. So Bircher with a really long stop, 9.5 seconds. 3 seconds lost in the spot to Dance, but they've all come out together again. And not far behind them too, Darren Lobb, but I believe Lobb will have to come back into the pits once more. But Dance and Briggs are still going out as Healy now right under the rear wing of Zach Hanlon. This is the closest he has been.
Yeah, this could be a potential dive at some point. Michael Healy, though, he's another one of those guys that shows restraint in his racing. He spent a long time in this community, was a member of Trans-Tasman Racing for the longest time too, and Clint Smith with big problems down at the S's section.
Yeah, what's happened here? Tucked in under the rear wing of the car of... Not 100% sure who that is in the...
Just caught the gravel once again.
Not sure.
Yeah, is it grass or gravel? Because the time of year that this track depicts is summer, so it's if it's grass...
it's dead grass.
It's very dead grass.
Yep. Have you actually seen this track when it's green? It's such an amazing sight when the grass is green here at Sonoma. It's an amazing looking track in the winter time, but summer it looks like a bit of a barren desert. It's Hanlon
Sonoma,
now really feeling pressure. Sorry.
Yeah, he is feeling that pressure. Sonoma Green in green shades was actually the first time I ever saw the track back in the old console gaming days, Gran Turismo 4. So that's the image of the track in my mind. Now, can Kenanzi get a new front end for that car? I would imagine so.
Hopefully he does. It'd be nice to see that car looking a little bit healthier. See if his pit crew can get him out there. Of course, everyone does have a spare car, and there he goes. He's in his spare car, and away he goes. So Kenanzi might have a bit of extra pace now that he comes out. That could be really, really good for him. Saying that he's having a long stop, he might actually either have a penalty, or is he taking tyres? Which I don't know if tyres would be a smart move with how short this race is, only 45 minutes.
Yeah, and the guys weren't going to be spending that much time putting these tyres under load anyway, because we did have that safety car intermission. Brett Hender also in the pits, he's just come off the jacks. Kenanzi's still stationary.
And took tyres.
Well, we'll see what he can do from here.
Trent Thomas is in trouble. Something's happened to him. Has he had a spin? Or has he had some sort of issue? Because he's just given up a spot there to Barron.
It was a spin, and it was just coming out of the hairpin into that section. Once again, catching the rear tyres just over the exit of the curb.
Whoa!
tried to recover it, but it was too little too late, unfortunately.
Ferraris and Healy have jumped into the pits, so Peasnick has actually lost a lot of his lead too. It was out to 2.5 seconds. It is now back into 1.2, so Bert's been able to eke a big chunk of time out of John Peasnick in the last couple of laps. Hanlon now sitting in third, Ott in fourth, Rizzo in fifth, but Healy and Ferraris, oh no, I don't like the oh no.
Problem for Ferraris. He overshot his pit box. He had to reverse back into it, so he'll undoubtedly be at the back of the pack that we were looking at. However, it is shuffled now.
And have a look at where he's come out, just a little bit ahead of Barron as Ferraris is off the circuit.
Oh.
So Trent Thomas, who we thought was at the back of that train, of course, with his spin, I think Thomas would have come out a fair way ahead of Ferraris and probably about where Healy is right now. So that spin for Trent Thomas has been very, very costly. Will we see our leaders pit this time? I would say Peasnick will be in. There he comes. Bird continues on.
Follow him in. Oh, okay. So Bird is going long as well. Well, I mean, he
No surprise, he drives
must
for
have
trick.
confidence. Yeah, of course. He must have confidence in the ability of that car to go long. We'll see what the rest of the drivers who have yet to pit do. So the only drivers who haven't pitted yet. So we got Bird, Ott, Rizzo, and Cummings as the only cars left out on track. Well, that's one less. And goes Cummings.
Yeah, Hanlon, Mazomo, and Gasul as well haven't pitted, as well as Roy Clark. So we've got a couple that still haven't pitted, but there's not many out there left to make their splash and dash stop because there's a very, very short pit stop time needed. Peasnick out. And what's the gap between he and Nick Cummings? It's saying 27 seconds at the moment. Oh, Cummings is actually in the pits. Where is Healy going to be? Crosses the line now. Gap between Healy and Peasnick, I'm going to say about 12 seconds.
Yeah, it seems that way. So
not a bad guess, 11 and a half.
Yeah,
I'll take
true.
that.
Very close. You certainly will and should. Meanwhile, Cameron Dance and Justin Wallace coming together on track. I'm interested to see how far Dance can advance because he's been in the wars a little bit. He's got a couple of dents on the front of that Porsche.
Yeah, it hasn't been as smooth sailing as we would expect from Cam. He's had a little bit of trouble as he's gone throughout the race, but running out in these sort of races effectively as a privateer because his Slick Sim Sports team is a dirt team. Mainly for
Bird in the pits.
Yep. And Hanlon in as well. This will be interesting, but Ott in as well, and I believe Rizzo will continue on for another lap. What a surprise that Rizzo goes for another lap. Still got 7 laps of racing to go, so looks like he's going to have to put 6 laps worth of fuel in. His pit stop should be the shortest out of everyone, but doesn't mean that he's going to jump as Bird away. Bird is going to get out ahead of Peasnick. Oh. This is going to be tight. And the overcut has worked for Alexander Bird.
Nice job from the trick driver. So he assumes what will eventually be the lead of this race. Peasnick now has a proper fight on his hands for this win.
And it's not as easy as we see in other series where you've got to get tyres up to temp. These tyres are already up to temp because there are no tyres taken at the pit stop. So Bird is straight back up to pace pretty much as there's an accident just ahead. Oh!
Oh my goodness, that's awkward. So Nikolaev and Smith involved in that one. That was almost race ending for the leaders.
That was scary. We both had mild heart attacks then.
Oh my goodness. I'm not quite sure what happened there because it seems like Nikolaev was actually in the midst of a battle with Pat Gallo. Got a little bit of oversteer coming through the right-hander, and the correction, unfortunately, speared his car right into the path of Smith. Here's the moment. The car regains grip, and unfortunately, Smith has nowhere to go.
And you can just see there goes the leaders. So they were very, very lucky. We both held our breath there as Ross Rizzo comes in. So the field is cleansed. Everyone has made their stop finally. Only taken nearly 40 minutes of racing. So Rizzo will probably resume, I'm going to say, in about 5th position just behind Michael Healy, but Philip Worley and Ryan Jerrick continue a fight here. So still battles going on. Actually, going to go back to the leaders because Bird and Peasnick, it was out to 0.8 of a second. Now it's come back to under half a second. Now leaders are fighting and fighting hard. Rizzo resumes in 6th position behind Ott.
All right, so that might be an interesting one in the last few laps. The gap is quite large though between Rizzo and Ott. I don't know if much will eventuate from that. Meanwhile, Peasnick, I'm noticing he's had a couple of inconsistencies on this lap in particular, pushing too hard, coming into the corners, coming over the crests, which hurt him in the first half of the track. But through this section, be able to see Alexander Bird taking a little less curb, a little less aggressive with the sides of the track than Peasnick is. I love watching two drivers with differing styles battling out in the same car. Yeah, they look so different in the behaviour of the car. The lines are so different, and the behaviour of the cars just looks so extreme. Peasnick so shallow through the hairpin there, almost hit the tyre bundle, and they sometimes feel like they creep out and jump at you, those tyre bundles out there. I've hit many a bundle that hairpin when I used to race back in the day. It's a scary little section, so I've got about 4 laps of racing left in this one. Bird to Peasnick, under half a second. This is what we want to see in this series. Yeah, for sure. What a way to open up the series as well. These kinds of battles we're likely to see all season because it's the perfect mix of hard racing nous and strategy brains. Is what we love to see. Lee's just making their way past the lap car here. Benjamin Brook in the number 39. Peasnick with a less optimal exit there, but he's still staying in touch with Bird. Might ramp up the aggression in the last couple of laps.
I wouldn't be surprised to see Peasnick start to show the nose a little bit, but not actually go for a move, and then wait until maybe 2 to go, and then really get aggressive. He doesn't mind getting aggressive out there. It'd be great to see what he can do here in the next little bit. This is going to be a really interesting finish to the race. There's still battles going on. Hanlon to Healy's spread out to 2 seconds. Ott 1.5 seconds back. Rizzo another 2.5 seconds back. A mistake for Bird. And then now side by side.
Peasnick actually not getting the best exit out of there. So Bird not in any trouble, at least for the next few seconds. Peasnick, though, maybe smelling blood. Having a little look. Oh, almost losing control of the car there.
He's fighting hard, isn't he? He's fighting hard to control the car because he's trying to extract every little piece of grip out there. This is the battling that we love to watch in this series, and we've seen in every season so far.
Yeah, be it GT3 or GTE, there's something about this series and the format and the drivers it attracts that results in a fantastic show for everyone. So we've only got under 3.5 minutes left to go before racing concludes. Peasnick may have another go at Bird down at the hairpin. He seems to be, it seems his greatest strength is in those heavy braking zones.
I'm surprised that Peasnick doesn't look as strong on exit as Bird is. He's, as you said, looking really good under brakes. He just can't quite get there in the end, but I don't think this battle's anywhere near done. As just seeing it, there's a little bit of fighting still going on back in the field, but we need to stay with this lead battle because any more mistakes from Bird, and I think the position will go. We're going to have 2 laps to go when we cross the line. Bird will know that he cannot make another mistake because that will be race ending for him in regards to winning.
Yeah, exactly right. He'll have to settle for second. Well, the clock is ticking. 2 times a minute and 25, just under 3 minutes. So, yes, 2 laps to go, and that's a problem for Jimmy Ball. He was actually running a bit further up when I last looked at him. He was in the middle of Adam Briggs, Cody Bircher, and Neil Pearson. Oh, okay.
It's been a bit of positional changes between these two, and there's a pretty bit of nasty contact between those two guys. So, but we're not in race control. That's all I'll say. Peasnick, those really close now.
Oh, he is too, and this is one of the places where he really draws up to the back of Bird. I think Bird's still fuel saving a little bit, actually.
Possibly, yeah.
Yeah, because Piesnik seems to lunge quite a bit in the braking zones. Bird is reserving all of his throttle application for the exits of the corners. Well, I mean, that's what you're supposed to do anyway,
Well,
but you
yes.
get what I mean.
Yeah, I know what you meant. I knew exactly what you meant. So this will be the white flag this time by. And have a look at how wide Piesnik runs there, off into the dirt, the exit of the little chute. So white flag in the air. This is the final lap of the race. 1:10 left on the clock. Will Piesnik be able to get through here on Bird? This is going to be really close and will come down to the last hairpin, you feel. Bird has to be a little bit careful, needs to be quick, but also needs to defend at the same time. Mate, this looks good from Piesnik.
Yeah, it does. He went all the way to the apex of the corner, late apexing that first section, provides you a bit of a run down to this corner, but not able to do anything for the moment. You see little twitches from the JPR BMW as he comes over the hill. He's right at the end of his tether. Here's John Piesnik. He's led for so long, but Bird beating him on strategy. And Bird flashing his lights because we've got a couple of lapped cars coming through. Piesnik's teammate Reese Gasol, one of them. And just Josh Perween to go. I don't know if he'll let these guys by before the end of the lap. Looks like Bird has the gap that he needs. I don't know if Piesnik is going to be able to come from this far back at the hairpin.
He's got to get through this corner fine and make sure that this lap car gets out of the way safely. Good job from Perwin to get out of the way. Perwin and Gasol actually had contact through the infield carousel, but great job from Alexander Bird. Great job.
Excellent stuff. A fantastic win, and he'd been threatening to do it for so long since he started competing in this series. It'll feel good to finally get that under his belt.
Great drive from Piesnik as well. Piesnik did a great job. He just that slight extra second in the pit lane is what's lost him the race. It's incredible that the drive through the lane, pit stop time's not a huge difference, but the actual time it took through the lane was enough for Bird to jump Piesnik. Again, we say how many times we said it. Guys need to practice their pit entries to make sure they don't lose as much time. We've said that how many times in the last week because it's so true. As I just seeing David Mulhall having a little issue. We're going to rewind a little bit though because we need to see what happened there between Perwin and Gasol because that was a big incident through the infield.
All right, let's take a look. So this is there's Gasol at a standstill. Yeah, he was actually getting up to speed. So what on earth happened here? One car going wide. That's the XG Motorsports machine of Josh Perween. Oh my goodness.
Oh!
Yeah, through that compression, Gasol lost all the front grip.
And then the leaders coming through, and it would have been scary for Bird because look there on the inside, you just see the two cars both getting up to speed. He's like, where am I going to go here? Good job from Gasol to get out of it early to make sure that there was no interference in that fight. But that was a fantastic race. Well done to Alexander Bird. He's been trying to get this win for so long, and to get it finally is a great job. So well done, Alexander Bird.
Yes, indeed. Well, we'll go through the race results here, unofficial, of course. Alexander Bird taking the win by under 4/10 from John Piesnik. Zach Hanlon follows and completes the podium. Michael Healy and Mia Ott completing the top 5. Ross Rizzo, Dominic Ferraris, and Michael Barron completing the top 8. Great runs from all of them, but Ferraris, I think, will be desiring a little bit more.
Yeah, you'd be disappointed considering where he was before the pit stop. And of course, as you said, he overshot his pit box, and that's cost him about 4 spots. So unlucky for him. Trent Thomas, Ryan Jerrick finished the top 10. Then we've got Philip Worley, Nick Cummings, Cody Bircher, Neil Pearson, and then Adam Briggs, who was in the wars, as well as Cameron Dance. They finished 15th and 16th. Nose to tail, just as they started.
Through the rest of the field, then Justin Wallace and Thomas Hins, with Huxham, Misdale, and Silvassi up to position 21. Brett Cananzi making it 22nd in the end. That decision to take tyres probably harmed it because he was on for a top 10 otherwise. Brad Ratu and Brett Hender completing the top 24.
Then we got Simon Mazzome to get back to 25th position in the end with Darren Lobb. Had to take 2 pit stops for incident in the early stages causing him to get damage. So he finishes in 26. Darren McKenzie, Cameron Stover and David Mulhall round out the drivers on the lead lap. Then we've got Josh Perwin 1 lap down in 30th. Benjamin Johnson and Benjamin Brook rounding out the top 32.
More cars that unfortunately had less luck. Reece Gasol among them. Top 10 start, but he'll have to settle for classified 33rd. Jacob Knight and Stephen Bartholomew following him. Pat Gallo and Andrew Mogridge with Carmichael Harnell and Nikolaf rounding out the top 40 there.
And then the rest of the field, Roy Clark also 1 lap down. Then Spithill 2 laps down. Ball and Paulo Gallon 3 laps down. Then the retirements of Clint Shane Smith, Riley Blythe, Sebastian Murray Westberg and Jake Maloney, who we saw come in under the safety car and then park the car about 10 laps in.
Well, a big shame for a lot of people, but great success for many others. Driver interviews coming up very shortly, but first, a message from our sponsor.
I started working on Epiroc machines in 2009. I've been able to career progress through the company to become the product manager for Australia. This is what inspires me.
Join the Epiroc Australia team and enter a world of innovation, commitment, and collaboration. Epiroc Australia is looking for passionate people to be part of our global team and to make a real difference for our customers. We cultivate leaders in the mining industry, providing a career path and the support to achieve great things. This is an environment that challenges you to thrive. If you're ready to start a new journey, visit us at epiroc.com.au. First driver interview of the night is going to be our second place man, John Peasnick. John, my goodness, it was an exciting race out there. Bird ended up getting you in the pits, but that was a great fight for the lead.
Yeah, thank boys. Yeah, that was a great race. Well done to Alex. He outsmarted me in the pits there and obviously put a little bit less fuel in and got the win. And yeah, well done to him. But yeah, it was a great race and there was not much between us pace-wise. So yeah, good fun.
Seemed like Trick did their usual shtick of going for fuel strategy above anything else. But from your perspective, what was the fuel game going to be like, especially considering we had that safety car at the start?
I thought there may have been more safety cars, to be honest. So I was contemplating, maybe it was a race to go through without stopping. But no, it told me that obviously I needed a little bit of fuel, so it was more just head down. And I wasn't really saving, to be honest. So it was more just head down and see what I can do. But obviously a gap didn't appear. So look, I just obviously put 2 litres, maybe too much to him, and that was enough to lose that spot. So, bit of a shame, but, well done to Alex.
Nonetheless, it's going to be a fantastic season once again in SSA. Mid-Ohio coming up in 2 weeks' time. This is a very tight start to the championship. A lot of tracks that we don't usually see GT cars racing at with those short blasts between turns.
Yeah, it's something different, and it's probably something good, to be honest. It's tracks that you don't get a huge amount of time on, so it's good fun. It will throw things up, and it's something a little bit different from the normal. But yeah, no, nothing wrong with the tight ones. Quite enjoyable. So yeah, it should be good, to be honest.
Certainly should. Before we let you go, John, who would you like to thank? Any shout-outs or sponsors?
Mate, there is absolutely no sponsors on this side. It's just myself and Reece doing our little thing. So just obviously a thanks to my mate Reece for helping us out to get the car where it is. And that's about it. Thank you. And thanks to you guys for the great broadcast.
Thank you very much, John. John Peasnick there for JPR Racing. The next driver we're going to go to is, of course, our race winner, Alexander Bird, in the number 82. Alex, congratulations on the victory. It was quite the hard fight between you and John.
Yeah, thanks, Reece. I'm stoked. I didn't think that was going to happen, actually. The whole first 2/3 of the race, John was just edging. I could keep up, and then all of a sudden he's got another 10th. But obviously, I guess being able to go a touch longer on fuel shortened up my stop, and that got me in front. And of course, Sonoma is so hard to pass. Even when I made that mistake at the hairpin, he couldn't capitalise. So yeah, it was able to hang on.
Cast your mind briefly back to the start between you and Gallon. What was your perspective on that? Because it kicked off quite a bit of drama in the initial safety car.
Yeah, I I think, well, I know why he did what he did. He sort of hooked left as soon as the green flag went because he hadn't seen John go, and he just doored me into the fence. Like I actually rode up onto the fence, and at that point I sort of went, well, I'm just gonna hold my line here. I'm not gonna sort of give anything. And then we sort of touched a bit into turn one, and he couldn't hold it on the track, and I don't think he could get it stopped in time to stop himself come back on the track. So a bit unfortunate, but yeah, I don't think there's much in it, to be honest.
Other than that, man, it's certainly a great start for you and for Trick Sim Sports in this series. So definitely the future is looking bright once again. You guys definitely have a big history in this championship, and it looks like it's business as usual from here on in.
Yeah, it's going fantastic. We've got a couple of new hires out of the whole shake-up, and they're helping. Got a few guys on board that know their stuff with setup, so that's helped a lot this week. And yeah, we're looking forward to giving it a good.
Well, before we let you go, Alex, who would you like to give a shout out to?
Yeah, just Trick Sim Sports, Trick Custom Fabrications, Night Rider Designs. Yeah, that's I think about.
Alexander Bird there for Trick Sim Sports, your race winner. Completing the podium was Altus Esports' Zach Hanlon. My goodness, Zach, from 6th to 3rd, it wasn't an easy one for you.
No, it was a bit tricky. Bit of a bump at the beginning there from Louis as he was coming back onto the track, which kind of, I don't know if it did any damage to the car, but it did feel just a tad funny. So after the safety car, I just kind of plodded along behind Dominic's high downforce circuit, so it's pretty hard to pass around here. I just tucked in and waited for I knew the pit strategies would play out a bit funny, so I just had to wait a bit and yeah, made the right call. So it was a pretty good race.
Certainly was from your perspective. The BMW seems to be the car of choice for the guys up the front.
Yeah, I've truthfully never driven it more than I think like 30 minutes prior to this. So I just wanted to drive a BMW because I'm a BMW man. And yeah, it seems to be performing really well. I was really happy with the balance of the car for the most part. Picked up a little bit of understeer towards the end of the stint, but for the early stage of the race, the car was really planted, and I knew it'd be good through the middle of the race. I knew my teammates had sorted out some sets that were pretty good, so I matched them together, and I knew it was going to be a good race car. So yeah, it's been pretty enjoyable, and it doesn't seem to really have a weak spot either. It seems to be pretty good across the board, so definitely a good choice to be running.
Well, a good start for you, round 1 at Sonoma, but looking forward to the next round at Mid-Ohio. Will we see more of your Altus compatriots joining you?
Yeah, definitely hope so. I know there's definitely some intention within the team to bring some more cars out, and hopefully they'll put the liveries on the car as well, like I so well did tonight. But it's been a pretty crazy week for me, and yeah, just dropped the ball on that one. But yeah, I think we've got at the very least we definitely have one other person I believe who's going to be coming along, so that'll be good to see. And yeah, Mid-Ohio is really good track, fun track, and should be some good racing there.
Before we let you go, Zach, who gets it done for you?
We've got to thank the team, obviously, at Logitech G and Astro Gaming, who are massive supporters of ours, who have been doing really good things with, and always chatting with them and going to PAX and everything's always good. Also want to thank Modem Simulation for their continued support, and Cube Controls, and the Confederation of Australian Motorsport for their contributions to us as well. It's all greatly appreciated, and it's good to be out there and having racing with all the competitors tonight as well. Everyone did some pretty good driving, so thanks to all the other guys out on track for putting on a good race.
Awesome to see Cams getting involved in sim racing like they are. That's Zach Hanlon there from Altus Esports, your 3rd place, man. Well, Jay, that brings to an end proceedings for tonight. Wow. I mean, this series, there's always high expectations from me for this, and it just ends up meeting them every time.
Yeah, it definitely does. Regardless of whether we have a little bit of a messy race or it's fully clean, there's always some awesome racing, and if the racing doesn't happen at the front of the field, the midfield and the rear of the field always put on a show for us. So every single race we've had in this series in the past has always been awesome. First time heading to Mid-Ohio for this series. Looking forward to that. It should be a really, really awesome race and a really, really cool schedule as well. And of course, big announcement coming with this series is that we will be heading for one round as a V8 Scops support category race on the Saturday night, which should be really cool as well.
Yeah, certainly will. Fantastic initiative for this series, getting some broadcast time with the Premier Series and Australian touring car racing here on the iRacing Esports Network. Well, speaking of future broadcasts, Monday next week, we've got the iRacing V8 Series at Watkins Glen. Next Friday, we've got the Geodesic GoPro Series at Silverstone. Really looking forward to seeing how that series goes. One of the series we broadcast here on SimSpeed TV in the American sphere. On Friday, of course, we've got AOSC, more Australian touring car racing for you all. And Sunday next week, we've got the Oceanic Endurance Championship. So that's what's coming up for us on SimSpeed TV in the next couple of weeks, and we hope you join us for all of those and more here on the iRacing Esports Network. A big thanks to our sponsor Epiroc for their support of this series. Thanks to GLA, GT Leagues Australia for their organisation of this championship, and thanks to all the drivers for putting on a fantastic show. I'm Reese Gardner, Jay Kennedy alongside me. This has been the Epiroc Sprint Series Australia from Sonoma. Alexander Bird the winner. We'll see you next time.
Fantastic. This is GT racing right now.
He's got traction. He's going around the outside. Both of them. Maloney.
Oh, he's taking Anderson. Anderson's up top.
Oh my God. Big crash. Oh my goodness. Half the field's going to get full.
Second very close. These guys I want to make their way through the field very quickly.
Oh, there we go. Oh no.
That's massive. This is it. This is over. I can't believe this. Oh my God.
God, what?